You talked about the reentry for probably the biggest edible in the overall industry, which is Betty's Edtis. Had the agreement with Green Thumb Industries going back 4 years ago. It was probably a number one seller within the state. You now are re-entering back in. What's the feedback been since the launch of the end of January from some of your consumers now that you've re-entered back into the market and the fact that they now have access to it? So what are you seeing? Like, I know vapes has done very, very well from some of the previous conversations that I've had with John, but your vapes are doing well within the state of Illinois. But what are you seeing that consumers want right now in Illinois in comparison to, say, a growth state like you're also in Maryland? Hey everyone, thanks for checking into our latest Traded Black podcast. Today, what are we talking about? We're talking about the wholesale opportunity in the state of Illinois and why it's one of the most lucrative opportunities for any company within the overall country. Why is that? Well, let's find out as we welcome in the Chief Revenue Officer back to the podcast, Ryan Crandall. Good to see you. I think it's probably been 8-9 months since we had you on last, but from what I'm hearing from the team, you've been traveling quite a bit from Massachusetts over to the state of Illinois. Is that correct?
We have been. We've been doing a good amount of travel, exciting stuff, and growing the company. So good stuff.
Well, look, we've talked about this quite a bit over the past couple of years that we've had you guys on regularly, and you talked about the reentry for probably the biggest edible in the overall industry, which is Betty's Edtis. Had the agreement with Green Thumb Industries going back 4 years ago. It was probably a number one seller within the state. You now are re-entering back in. What's the feedback been since the launch of the end of January from some of your consumers now that you've re-entered back into the market and the fact that they now have access to it?
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate. We got a great team in the state of Illinois, great sales team, and the doors are open. I mean, Betty's is being welcomed back into doors in Illinois with open arms. So we're in over 100 stores in less than 2 months, which is ahead of where we anticipated we would be. So we're ahead of plan on Betty's. Bubby's Baked. We're ahead of plan, and our vapes as well. So I'm sure we'll get into some of that. But across the portfolio, Betty's is leading the way for sure. But it's exciting to get all of our products across the board into the Illinois dispensaries.
Look, there's a lot of people that follow this space and they know a lot about the state of Illinois, but I think it's great to hear people that are operating within the actual state itself. So right off the top, what makes this state, I guess, and this wholesale market so lucrative within the state of Illinois?
Sure. I think Illinois has a great population, across the state. So, it's got a good consumer base for cannabis. It has a good amount of, folks coming in on vacation. So it's got a good amount of tourism and interstate traffic. So I would say all of those lead to a population that's able to consume cannabis and does at a great level. There aren't 300 stores in the state of Illinois yet. They will grow the number of stores, but at this point, the revenue has been spread across, relatively few number of stores for the population and the land size. So as stores grow, that revenue will get eaten into for everybody's stores. One of the good news for MariMed, we're at 5 stores out of a possibility of 10. So that's part of our growth strategy within the state.
So a lot of growth opportunities within it. One thing I wanted to mention too is your new dispensary, the Thrive Dispensary, which is in Casey, Illinois. Talk about just why it's in Casey and again, what the opportunities this dispensary, I guess, more or less tackles as far as the company's strategic objectives.
Sure. Very excited about Casey, our latest addition to the Thrive Dispensaries in Illinois. So it is our 5th store in the state of Illinois. On the eastern side of the state. So it's actually the first dispensary. If you landed a plane in Indianapolis and you said, I'd like to visit a Thrive dispensary, we're going to be the first dispensary in Illinois that you can visit. Okay. So we are actually directly west of Indianapolis, right near Terre Haute, right over the border. So, excited to provide the folks of that community and elsewhere with access to cannabis.
We've highlighted growth states like Virginia and Maryland on some of our other podcasts about the overflow of like people from North Carolina that are coming into like other states like a Virginia. Do you anticipate, or are you seeing a lot of that now within like people that live in Indiana that are coming over to Illinois?
We do. Yeah, we do see a good amount of interstate traffic. We do see within the same state, same state traffic as well. But there is a good amount of cannabis tourism, if you will, still happening around the borders. And so, yes, we do see a good amount of Indianapolis and Indiana in general traffic.
So regulatory framework you indicated. So currently 5 dispensaries with the opportunity to grow to 10. So is there a lot of competition right now that's maxed with the amount of dispensaries that they have right now within the state?
Yeah, so most of the big MSOs that do business in the state of Illinois are already maxed out. So your
Right.
Veranos, your Crescos, your GTIs already are at 10. So there is a great opportunity for us, being at the 5 level and now having our cultivation come online, our processed products come online. We've got the opportunity to feed our own stores and really increase our margin dramatically in the state of Illinois within our existing stores, and then improve that margin even further as new stores come online for us.
That's good. Vertical integration, another important thing to bring up in the state of Illinois. Can you detail, I guess, the approach on vertical integration within the state, specifically the impact of the new craft grow and processing facility that you have in Mount Vernon?
Sure, happy to. So yeah, we have a craft grow and processing center in Mount Vernon, Illinois, that just opened back in November. And so, in a phased approach to that opening and rollout, we immediately wanted to get our processed goods moving. So we actually purchased some oil on the open market and started to produce Betty's Eddies, started to produce Bubby's Baked and in-house vape pens. Vibations, powdered drink mix. So think liquid IV meets cannabis, that comes out in a couple weeks here. We've also got in-house gummies, so value meets quality on the gummy side. All that comes in the next couple weeks. So processed goods and will be kind of in full speed ahead. Right now. Over the next couple months, we will be adding cultivated flower to the
Yep.
portfolio of products, and we'll be feeding that to our stores as well, so further improving margin. And then we will be selling some of that to other select stores across the state as a kind of a limited release, exciting premium flower.
So what are you seeing? Like, I know vapes has done very, very well from some of the previous conversations that I've had with John, but your vapes are doing well in the state of Illinois. But what are you seeing that consumers want right now in Illinois in comparison to, say, a growth state like you're also in Maryland?
Yeah, I think we're seeing people want high quality products at a good price. So I think we're still seeing relatively higher unit prices on various categories of products in the state of Illinois versus other states like Mass and Maryland. So the unit economics is still higher, so they do have room to potentially come down in the future,
Yep.
which is potentially out there. But I would say for the most part, our products, even when they go through market, price compression in the market, typically sit at the top of that and get affected the least. So I feel confident that a lot of most of our premium brands are tested in markets that have gone through, some of this price degradation, and that hasn't happened yet in Illinois. So I think as we see that, we'll continue to do well, and we have product answers for all of those market conditions.
This is a question that I don't think people can appreciate or understand, but when it comes to scaling and making sure the product is consistent within multiple states, like I said off the top, you've been traveling a lot from Massachusetts to Illinois, but how do you even begin when you're operating into a new market, assembling the right team in place and making sure that the product is consistent in the state of Illinois as what you get as being an industry leader in other states?
It is all about process and it's all about the team. I think it's about those two things for us. So really understanding a process and having a process that's deliberate from corporate to protect our IP, to make sure that our ingredients are the ingredients that we intend that are in our products that fit our
Yeah.
standards, and then we dictate that. We're assembling all those. We call them bomb bags for each one of the different product lines. And the idea is that we control the bomb, right? We control the bill of materials for every one of our products.
Yeah.
And through that control and organization comes great quality. And it takes great teams to implement great processes and great strategies. So we have great teams at each of our facilities that are trained really, really well. And then they follow these SOPs. And I think the SOPs are pretty tight to create great products.
I think one thing that you got to share, and I don't think I've ever asked you this in an interview, how did the idea of Betty's Eddies come to fruition? Because I know it was you and Timothy Shaw when I was with you guys last year in Boston, but this was an interesting story. You got to share as to how the whole idea came to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, look, we really believed in the idea behind Betty's really came from some of the deficiencies that were out there in products, right? So
Right?
inconsistent doses, were due to cannabis oil being added to products late in the process or too early, and they're not mixed in properly. So we realized that caramels and taffies, due to the way that it got mixed, just led to a really homogeneous product. And that was really important to us. Now,
Right.
obviously, that wasn't the reason we picked it, but the reality was that played a big component and a big role in the success of
Yep.
why that product, because it was so consistent just by nature. And I would say, second is we really cared about ingredients, and we really cared about, the different, the taste. Ultimately, it was about a great tasting product. So how did it come about? I mean, ultimately, man, it was iterations of 6 years with a lot of different food people that were experts in
I
different
bet.
fields. And, it was a patchwork quilt that we put together that was beautiful at the end. And that we continue to build every day.
So the idea that came to fruition to like 6 years later, like how much did the idea change? And, was there some well thought out meetings between you and Tim that, and resulted maybe some good times and an acoustic guitar and just kind of brainstorming?
Yeah, with Kumbaya. No, look, and there's another gentleman, Sean Crowley, that played instrumental role too with me, with Tim and I, and a lot of sleepless nights making candy in my basement.
I'm
But I'll
sure.
say this. I mean, I'll say it iterated a lot. It started with caramel recipes. It went from things that had butter in the recipes and unnatural, artificial ingredients and flavors, to something that our lime candy was, essential lime oil with spinach in it to give it green look, right? We went,
Yep.
and no butter, all coconut oil, and really attention, all organic ingredients. And,
Smart.
the attention to detail on every single ingredient is what really got Betty's to a place that it continues to grow and build on the consumer confidence. Everywhere we go, we talk about, the quality of our ingredients and the quality of our people and processes. And I would say that transcends Betty's at this point, but it
Yep.
started there.
Yeah. Look, I know in the latest earnings, and I won't get too much into that, but there were some people with certain questions. But I think when you take a step back and you look at how much revenue was generated overall as a company, we like to educate people on the industry as a whole and say, like, look, 3, 4 years ago, can you imagine if we ever get to the stage that we're in now when it comes to like revenue opportunities within this space? There's lots of obviously rumors surrounding like rescheduling and if that takes place and what opportunity that presents, which would be huge. But you're in some key states to say the least. So, what is the total addressable market for wholesale in Illinois? Do you have that? Do you know by chance? And if so, like, what does that again? I guess present knowing that you can double your retail license from 5 to 10 over the next how much the timeline would be requiring that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, Chad. I would want to do a little bit of diligence before I directly answer the question of the addressable wholesale market. And the reason I say that is because I feel like there's a lot of MSOs with a lot of production capability that sell to themselves,
Yep.
and canceling out what they sell in their own stores reduces the overall addressable market. I think the market, rough and tough, was 1.6 billion, right around that number, I
Big
believe,
number.
last year. And
Yep.
and so if you divide that by half, that would be the wholesale selling in, but then you got to pull out the MSOs. So what's the addressable market? I would say it's probably between half a billion and $1 billion, rough and tough.
Yep.
That's obviously big goalposts, but it's a large opportunity that's growing every day as more stores open.
Well, I bring that up because, when I bring up the idea of differentiation, a lot of edibles, you don't hear a lot of saltwater taffy type edibles within the
Sure.
industry. We've said this before where people are zigging, you're zagging, which was a great approach, but I looking back at this now, what's your thoughts on like not only coming up with an idea that most people in the industry are not really covering, but at the same time too, like these are leading edible products within the states that you're in. So I would say and I would think like when it comes to differentiation, just the saltwater taffy approach is top of mind awareness on what you're basically saying to your consumers, is it not?
It is. It absolutely is. And I think the approach really is identifying in each one of these categories that we want to participate.
Yep.
What are other people doing wrong, or what are the consumers not thrilled with? The leaders in that category, and then let's do those things better. Those can be our differentiators. And whether it's a gummy, a saltwater taffy, a fresh baked good, a vape pen, or a flower jar, that's our approach. We want to do what other people's don't do well. We want to do those things well, and then we want to stand for those things.
Do you think right now, without naming names, there's a lot of product out there that just isn't good?
I think it's improving every day.
You
If
do?
you asked me in 2016 when walking in, 16th Street in Colorado, buying gummies and brownies and things, I mean, there were a lot of really bad products. There was a rush to get product on the market. I
Yep.
think it's matured dramatically since those days, but there still is a rush to money. There's a lot of people that rush to a short dollar and don't have a long view of, really building something that's going to last. And you have to have quality to last.
That is for sure. But I think you're right. Quality builds brands, and that's what this industry needs. But there's a lot of trial and error that's being placed. But when you look at the trends of especially younger generations of alcohol consumption, wow, it's trending downwards in a hurry. And the younger generation definitely is pivoting more towards the cannabis space, which is encouraging to say the least. Last thing I want to bring up is, we talk about the opportunity itself. What would you say are the biggest challenges and opportunities that it presents to you within the state over the next 20 or 12 to 24 months?
Oh, geez. I would say, from an overall business perspective, the challenge will be building out retail, in the most effective locations as quickly as we can. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the name of the game on the retail side. Let's get to our 10, in the best locations as quickly as we can. And then I would say, let's maximize distribution out of the product side of our business, which we're well on the way to.
Yeah.
So, excited to try and get every single product, to substantiate the demand across every store that's going to open, which, there is going to be, opening of a lot of stores across the state of Illinois over that time that you mentioned. So, we'll have our work cut out for us to keep up with that growth and outperform our competition at the same time.
And let's get rid of 280E, right?
Hell yeah.
Real estate's a big thing, though, because I know John, your CEO, Levine, he's got a big background in commercial real estate. And if there's anyone that really knows how to pick locations, it's him, right?
Yeah, we've done, yes, and it shows. We've got some great locations in the portfolio today, and excited for some of the ones coming up in the future.
Yeah, this is good. Well, listen, I appreciate it. Was the end of January. Betty's Eddies launched back into the market, correct?
It is. Yep.
And now that we're 6 weeks in, response how's it been so far?
Yeah, I mean, people have been clamoring for Betty's to get back in the market.
Yeah,
So been great reception. We're ramping our brand ambassador program at the same time. We're ramping sales and deliveries to all the stores. So, we're going to be doing a lot of appreciation out within the stores for having us back within the market.
it's
So it's a
awesome.
really celebratory environment around Betty's right now in the market. In addition, I'll give you
Let me see.
we
What do
just
we got?
launched Ache Away Eddies PM.
What's
So,
this?
our two best SKUs, right? So pain relief and sleep, both in one. So the concept of, THC, there's CBN to help you sleep, there's CBC in there to help with pain and inflammation, and then there's a wealth of other supplements to aid with pain, inflammation, and sleep. Going to be a really, really hot seller. It's selling like hotcakes in Illinois right now.
What's the demo with that? Is it like younger? Is it 35 and older? Is
It's
it
been
all
all over
over?
the map. So the core demo for Betty's is 21 to 45, but we
Yep.
find a lot of folks well over that, using Betty's, being recommended Betty's by, younger folks in their life. But our core demo is actually trending young, as well as, we get some older folks as well.
Look, everybody loves a good story for somebody who's on the front line of a company.
Yeah.
When you talk about the growth of the industry, are there examples that you could actually that you've learned from consumers over the last year or two that really shows, yes, the growth of your products and your story, but the overall industry, as far as people understanding it more, are you seeing a lot of that and the
Yeah,
perception, I
yes,
guess?
I am, and we're running not to get into the weeds, and my marketing team will get really mad if I relay too much of this, but we're coming up with a campaign right now, and a lot of it is about success stories of customers with various products of ours,
Smart.
and some of them are heart wrenching, some of them are like inspiring, like you get goosebumps, so that's what I got, in addition to a high growth market and the business side of it. The reason I got into this is, really to help people. And that's the mission of the company. And I'll tell you, this campaign really brings that to life and helps you understand how much good our products do for people, whether it's
Yeah.
sleep or pain or whatever they're dealing with. So I'm really excited
Huh.
about that campaign coming.
Have you had any examples of kind of the era that grew up in the Nancy Reagan Just Say No era that had this perception of what cannabis was and this Schedule I drug and the whole perception that now look at it and say, boy, did we have this wrong? And yes, it needs to be rescheduled. Like, do you meet people like that?
Yeah, yeah, I have a laundry list. I mean, including my own parents for sure. I mean, there's people that we've worked with in various towns on select boards and mayor's offices that have completely had folks dying, and wished publicly with us, afterward. I wish I believed in cannabis and how much it could have not saved their life, but helped them,
The quality
with
of
their
life.
symptoms. So I think certainly those stories were more few and far between 10 years ago, but it's almost like people want to tell you how they specifically were changed mentally, because I think we
Yeah.
were all to some extent brainwashed by the propaganda of the last 30 years, and
Yeah.
we all have our
100%.
own unique times where we start to come out of that, and it is interesting to talk about people's moments and how they think about that.
What's crazy is the Nancy Reagan era wasn't 30, it was actually 40 years ago.
Isn't
Time's
that
flying.
crazy? Right, that is pretty crazy.
40 years. But I think the big takeaway here is, look, a lot of your product, including Betty's Eddies, is back in the Illinois market. And one thing I learned here today is the fact that you have the 5 dispensaries, the operating facility. You can maximize basically and double that up to 10. And more importantly, just as what you've just indicated, just re-education, or maybe even just people being educated for the first time on what the benefits of this product can be. And then overall, it presents obviously the opportunity from a wholesale opportunity within the state of Illinois, which is, it's just another story within these individual states that we like to cover off and just shed light on as to like what's the current situation within the market, specific companies that are basically stationed in there, and like what's the growth potential. Because at the end of the day, if you're an investor, people want to see grow opportunities. And if you can factor in rescheduling on top of that, you can understand why this industry is just so captivating. And many people still believe that this will be the investment opportunity of a lifetime. And key companies like yourselves present great growth opportunities if presented the right way. And if we get some announcements from legislation in Washington, but I think we do. And it'll be good for you guys.
Yeah, we're going to keep it going one way or the other, keep running a really
Right.
solid business
Right.
that keeps growing, and eventually we'll get rewarded for it.
Yeah. Hard work to say the least. All right. Tell everybody I say hi on the team, and I appreciate the feedback, and let's keep in touch.
Great to see you, Shad.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. What's up, everyone? So what'd you think of the interview? Are there any more questions you want us to ask that you want to learn more of? Then leave a comment below and let us know what you think. As usual, share this video with your network, smash that like button, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.